7. Ju-52 Iron Annie. About 70 feet or 23 meters below the surface of the Black Sea off the coast of Ukraine, a diver and his team found something amazing. They managed to uncover the sunken wreckage of a Luftwaffe plane that had been lost since 1942. Originally, the team included photographer Andrei Nekrasov and had set out in search of different aircraft, a Ju-88. Instead, the Ju-52 Iron Annie that they stumbled upon would prove to be all the more fascinating. Ju-52s were used as transport planes by the German forces during World War II. The one found by Nekrasov and his team was in such good condition that it contained many artifacts from the people who had been on board at the time of its crash. Divers found, among other things, a pair of boots, a shaving brush and toothbrush, a pair of goggles, a suitcase, and some maps, which still retain their vibrant color after so long being under the water. They found a thermos flask onto which the owner had signed their name, Wichert, and a belt buckle with a Nazi insignia which had the word Witch carved into the back. A sword belt with the name Crow was also found nearby, along with a cap that told them that one of the people on board had served in the Spanish Civil War. By using these items recovered from the wreck, the team was able to figure out what exactly had happened to the plane that they had discovered. On January 13, 1942, the Ju-52 had landed in Prahova, Romania to pick up its 9 passengers. Among those on board were Johann Wichert, whose belt and flask had been found, Karl Krook, likely the owner of the sword belt, and Oberstleutnant Beryl Axel Freiherr von Jena, who had served in the Spanish Civil War and was the likely owner of the cap. The plane was on its way to Nikolaev in Ukraine, which is where it was based as part of the 104th Transport Group. The journey would have been one that took place over land, but conditions on the day of the flight were so bad that the pilot, Lieutenant Horst Ringel, was essentially flying blind. The pilot did request permission to land in either Spartakovka, Russia, or Vygoda, Ukraine, but the aircraft never turned up at either of these 2 destinations and was not heard from again. That is, until its discovery almost 70 years later. The plane is in such good condition with its wings and propellers intact that the team believes that the pilot purposefully made a water landing. This would also be backed up by the fact that pairs of boots were left behind, as a protocol for an emergency water landing required soldiers to remove their footwear. However, the question still remains as to what happened to those on board the plane after it crash-landed. They must have tried to swim for shore, but their fates are still unknown to this day. What do you think happened? Tell us in the comments and hit subscribe while you're at it. 6. SS Thistlegorm. The SS Thistlegorm was a 384-foot or 128-meter long merchant ship that was built in 1940. Originally destined to be a merchant ship operating under the Scottish company Albin Line, she completed deliveries and trades to the US, Argentina, and the West Indies. Fate would change, however, when SS Thistlegorm was drafted to help with a war effort and tasked with resupplying the British 8th Army fighting in World War II. She was quickly equipped with a 120mm anti-aircraft gun and a heavy-caliber machine gun back in Glasgow, before heading out for Alexandria to avoid the heavy number of ships fighting in the Mediterranean. SS Thistlegorm was awaiting passage through the Suez Canal when disaster struck. On October 6, 1941, 2 German bombers that had been returning from a failed bombing mission decided instead to drop their bombs on the dock where the Thistlegorm was moored. The bombs ripped through into the cargo hold where the ammunition was stored, setting off an explosion that ripped the vessel apart, causing it to sink within 10 minutes of being struck. Thankfully, despite the catastrophic damage to the SS Thistlegorm, only 9 souls lost their lives. This was thanks to the heroic endeavors of those on board the HMS Carlisle, which was waiting alongside it and successfully evacuated most of her crew. 15 years after her tragic sinking, the wreck of the SS Thistlegorm was discovered by renowned diver Jacques Cousteau in 1956. Despite this, the wreck remained a local secret until the 1990s. when divers started to realize just what an amazing sight she was to dive. Not only is the wreck itself a true marvel, split into two from the force of the explosion that sank the ship, but it allows divers access to the treasure trove that is her cargo hold. Motorcycles destined for use by soldiers and trucks can be found in almost pristine condition, despite the marine life that grows on them, with many still having intact tires. Boots sat ready for the feet of frontline soldiers to be dotted about the wreck, along with rifles and ammunition to be used in the fight. However, the most famous items at the wreck site aren't actually found inside the SS Thistlegorm, but are located a short distance away from it. 2 locomotive engines were being transported on the ship, but were thrown clear of the wreck by the sheer power of the explosion which sank her. Today, despite her sad history, the SS Thistlegorm is the most popular dive site in the world. Would you ever want to dive the SS Thistlegorm, or have you already taken the plunge? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe while you're at it. 5. The Felicity Ace. In 2022, a cargo ship ended up sending many people's dream cars to a watery grave. The Felicity Ace was carrying an assortment of luxury cars like Porsche, Lamborghini, and Bentleys from their respective factories in Germany to the US when a fire broke out on board. The stricken ship called out for help and managed to receive support from Portugal, who sent out vessels to tow it into port for repairs and to put out the fire on board. Unfortunately, the ship was unable to make it safely to the closest dock on the island of Fayal. It began to list on its starboard side while under tow, as the movement caused water to quickly flood into the hull. The vessel sank when it was 250 miles or 402 kilometers away from the Portuguese Azores Island. At a depth of 30,000 feet, 9,144 meters, making it and its valuable cargo unsalvageable. Thankfully, all the crew on board had been airlifted to safety, but the sinking was still a blow for the German automotive companies, as well as those in the US who were patiently awaiting the arrival of their luxury vehicles. As for the cause of the fire, it is heavily believed that it could have been started by a lithium battery in one of the cars that the Felicity Ace was transporting, as it had on board a combination of electric and non-electric vehicles. But as the ship has sunk, this can't fully be confirmed. In terms of the total loss, the car companies involved refuse to say, although it's believed to have put them out of pocket by a staggering $155 million. 4. Kagen Underwater Cemetery. The island of Kagen in the Philippines has a strange statue of a cross standing in the middle of the sea. However, it's what this cross represents that is the most fascinating. In 1870, the volcano of Kagen, Mount Vulcan, erupted so violently that it took the capital city of the island as well as its cemetery under the waves. In remembrance of this tragedy, a large cross was erected on the water to remember the dead, both in the cemetery and from the sunken city itself. Today, visitors from all over the world come to Kagen to see this amazing structure, which can be accessed by boat. Those who do often say they feel a sense of sadness and loneliness from standing there, especially as the base of the cross offers views across to the volcano that caused such destruction. You can also dive to the site of the Kagen cross, and although you might not be able to see much, for a cemetery and memorial, it is teeming with underwater marine life. 3. Roman trading ships. In 2009, archaeologists made an amazing discovery off the coast of Ventotene in Italy. Lying at a depth of 328 feet or 100 meters below the waves, they found 5 Roman ships, all in pristine condition. The vessels are trading ships dating from the 1st century BC through to the 5th century AD. This makes their immaculate presentation on the seafloor all the more incredible to believe. Researchers feel like they know what might have happened to the ships thanks to the history of the island of Ventotene itself. Ventotene, known as Pandataria in Roman times, had long been a place where ships would shelter from the bad weather of the Tyrrhenian Sea. From the looks of things, the 5 ships were attempting to do just that, but sadly they didn't make it. Archaeologists were also able to take a look at the cargo that the Roman trading ships were transporting. They found amphorae full of wine from Italian vineyards, fish sauce from Spain and North Africa, something that was the Romans' food seasoning of choice, as well as some strange metal ingots that would have likely been used to forge weapons and statues. The cargo of each of the vessels also tells a story about how Roman trade developed. Initially, in the early days of the empire, Rome would have exported its produce to its growing provinces and settlements. But at its height, it would import everything that Rome needed from far afield to support its booming population. Thankfully, the depth of these wrecks has helped to keep them in such good condition. But it's feared that as the years go on and deep water diving becomes even more popular, historical wrecks like this around the Mediterranean could be disturbed or even destroyed by divers that don't have the necessary training to be able to handle and interact with these types of sites. As a result, archaeologists are in a race against time to catalog and discover as many as they can before they're lost to treasure hunters. 2. The Lake Erie wrecks. There's a body of water that has claimed more lives and vessels than the infamous Bermuda Triangle. And it might not be the one you expect. Lake Erie gets its name from the Iroquois word for a long-tailed cat, Erile Honan, and much like the feline inspiration, this lake is incredibly fickle and incredibly dangerous. The waters are incredibly changeable, going from calm and glass-like to ferocious waves at a moment's notice. To add insult to injury, the shallowness of Lake Erie compared to other Great Lakes makes the waves worse and the waters much more perilous. The shallowest part of Lake Erie is the western basin, and incidentally, this is where most wrecks occur. While the average depth of the water across Lake Erie is around 60 feet, or 20 meters, the depth of the western basin is less than half of that, at 24 feet, 7 meters. Not only do ships and other vessels have to contend with the shallow water in this area, but also a large amount of rocky outcrops, shoals, and islands. One of the challenges in the region is presented by Kelly's Island, located approximately 10 miles or 16 kilometers off the coast of Sandusky. Similar to the other small islands in this area, Kelly's Island has its share of nearby wrecks. However, Kelly's Island's claim to fame is the Lake Serpent, considered by many to be the oldest confirmed shipwreck in Lake Erie, which sank in 1829 while transporting limestone. Other wrecks in the western basin include the Sultan, which capsized 8 miles, 12.8 kilometers northeast of Cleveland. It was ferrying grindstones to Buffalo in 1864 when it scraped across a sandbar at the mouth of the Cuyahoga River, which damaged the hull before being finished off by the relentless waves of Lake Erie while the ship began to steadily take on water. Today, its cargo of grindstones can easily be seen on the lake bed, as well as the detailing of the wooden vessel, including its railings on the deck. Due to insufficient record-keeping over the years, the precise count of shipwrecks in Lake Erie remains unknown, with estimates varying from 500 to 2,000. A project conducted by Ohio Sea Grant aimed at cataloging the lake's shipwrecks has identified 277 wrecks to date. These wrecks are scattered throughout the lake, but there is a notably high concentration of wrecks in the western region encompassing Toledo, the Erie Islands, and Cleveland. The sheer amount of wrecks in the waters of Lake Erie provides historians and archaeologists with an unparalleled window into the past. The cold, fresh water found in the Great Lakes, like Erie, helps to preserve shipwrecks, especially made out of wood, which can quickly erode in warmer conditions thanks to bacteria and salt water. This means that many of the vessels being found by scientists look like they have only just sunk, even though they are hundreds of years old. 1. The underwater locomotives of New Jersey. Just off the coast of Long Branch, New Jersey, lies a fascinating maritime mystery that has left historians and enthusiasts scratching their heads. Resting 90 feet or 30 meters beneath the ocean's surface, 2 steam locomotives have been quietly nestled on the seabed for over a century. The discovery dates back to 1985 when a scuba diver named Paul Hepler was using a magnetometer to map the ocean floor. Suddenly, he received two powerful signals, indicating the presence of something large and metallic, usually the sign that he had found the wreck of a ship. However, it became abundantly clear that it was no ordinary find. There was no trace of typical ship debris. Instead, two locomotives stood proudly in front of him, standing upright as if they were on imaginary underwater railroad tracks. The locomotives were identified as Class 222T, a rare type of engine that was typically used in rail yards rather than for transportation. Yet the question of how they ended up here remained a mystery. No historical records indicated their loss at sea, nor was there any mention of a vessel carrying locomotives that went missing. The dominant theory is that engines were en route from Boston to New York and might have accidentally pushed or washed overboard during a powerful storm. But why no one reported this at the time seems rather strange. Thanks for watching. Which one of these underwater finds did you think was the most intriguing? Tell us in the comments below. Hit that thumbs up button and don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this one. See you next time. Bye.